His car just swerved and just hit, ran into the whole group of people.
It's not real. You go numb. It's not supposed to happen.
Investigators say they have new clues tonight about what may have led to an attack at Ohio State University. They say an 18-year-old student plowed his car into a crowd and then started stabbing people.
And by the time an officer took him down, 11 people have been injured. Their classmates pray for their recovery during a vigil on campus this evening. And federal investigators have now identified the attacker as Abdul Razak Ali Artan.
He was a Somali refugee who left his homeland with his family and moved to Pakistan. He came to the U.S. in 2014 as a legal permanent resident.
Police are now interviewing Artan's family and friends, and they're also going through his social media accounts. They already found a rant that they say he posted shortly before the rampage. Artan wrote that attacks on Muslims around the world, quote, led to a boiling point. I can't take it anymore. FBI agents are also searching his apartment and removing bags of potential evidence as they continue to try to determine a motive. They're looking at whether he may have been inspired by overseas terrorist propaganda, or if he had personal problems or something else that might have pushed him over the edge. No matter the cause, detectives say the attack was deliberate.
This was done on purpose, to go over the curb and strike pedestrians and then get out and start striking them with a knife. That was on purpose.
The officer who shot and killed Artan has only been on the force for 2 years. All of the victims are expected, thankfully, to survive.
Police departments at universities all over the U.S. review procedures, and UNLV is no exception. 13 Action News anchor Leslie Marine is live on campus with more on what's being done there to protect students. Leslie.
Steve, anytime you walk on UNLV, you probably notice those emergency posts. They're all around campus. Those are a reminder to students that things are safe here. But today, the police chief wanted to remind students they were safe once again by adding at least half a dozen extra police officers. Chaos breaks out across the Buckeye campus. 11 students in the hospital, the attacker shot by police. Miles away at UNLV, students think about their own safety.
It kind of puts me in a vulnerable place because I do worry about my safety, what's going to happen.
Every single issue right now is so heightened and so polarizing. You have to be at least somewhat aware.
How prepared are we for this?
As prepared as we can be.
I sat down with UNLV Police Chief Jose Alique. Today he added 5 more officers out to patrol campus.
In today's day and age, people feel safer when they see a blue suit around.
Today, UNLV police reviewed all their safety protocols. More than 30,000 people will receive an alert if something were to happen on campus. Some classrooms also have electric locks. Professors can activate them in an instant.
Run, hide, fight, right? So that's what they teach you in high school.
We don't like to unduly alarm people, but it's days like today that should put it at least a little bit in the forefront of your brain.
And the chief did say they will relieve a good amount of officers here right around 7 p.m., but he said they'll still keep a good team of officers here throughout the night. Reporting live, Leslie Marine, 13 Action News.
Well, new overnight, a potentially deadly terror attack foiled in the Philippines. Police detonating an IED just 60 feet away from the U.S. Embassy in Manila. Local officials believe an ISIS-linked group was behind that attempted attack. The bomb was discovered after someone saw a person riding in a taxi place something in a trash can. Police say it was the same type of explosive as the one that killed 15 people in a market in the Philippines earlier this year.
U.S. Special Operations chiefs are launching a new counter-terrorist nerve center at an undisclosed location in the Middle East. Preparing for a multi-generational international fight against terrorists, the center will support the fight against the so-called Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, and any other terrorist actor. The Joint Special Operations Command is the U.S. military's premier counter-terrorist strike force. JSOC is expanding its existing targeting nerve center in the region to make space for more American terror hunting personnel from 3-letter agencies like the CIA, NSA, and FBI to foreign partners like Britain, France, Iraq, and Jordan. According to the Daily Beast, JSOC has been spending a lot of time reassuring its own U.S. government partners that they won't share everything with foreign partners, just that which helps other governments identify, track, and if necessary, arrest or kill terrorists in their midst.
Big news overseas, a massive operation launched by the Iraqi army to wrestle control of Mosul, the country's second largest city, from the hands of ISIS. NBC's chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel is with troops on the move in northern Iraq this morning. Richard, good morning, and tell us about what you're seeing there.
Good morning. This is a major operation. Where we are, we've been hearing outgoing rockets and artillery throughout the day. It began in the early morning hours, and around 60,000 Iraqis are taking part. It's also the main focus of the some 5,000 U.S. troops in this country.
The biggest offensive against ISIS anywhere so far has begun. And this morning, Iraqi forces backed by American air power and artillery are on the move.
It seems like every Iraqi in uniform and every vehicle is being brought in for this operation. And so far, this stage, moving the armor to the front line, is moving very quickly. But American commanders say it could slow down considerably if and when they meet resistance.
Heading into battle, but their mood is upbeat. As the attack convoy stopped briefly, some troops started dancing. And they're getting a warm reception from Iraqi civilians. Many villagers came out to welcome the troops as they advance toward Mosul, where more than 1 million people are penned in by ISIS as human shields. But then, as the convoy drew closer to Mosul, an ominous sign. Huge plumes of black smoke shut out the sun. ISIS torched these oil wells it used to fund its terror, rather than allow them to go back to the Iraqi government. Many Iraqis want revenge for over 2 years of ISIS abuses. We will be victorious in Mosul, God willing, a soldier said. It's unclear how long the Mosul offensive will take, days or perhaps a few months. It depends on what ISIS has in store for these troops.
Iraq's Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi said this mission has one goal: to liberate Mosul from ISIS. And God willing, he said, we will win. Savannah, Matt, back to you.
All right, Richard Engel in Iraq, thank you.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.
To find out more about the story, we go to our special correspondent in Jerusalem, Iris Mackler. Iris, can you tell us more about this attack?
I can tell you what we know from the Israeli Defense Forces, which is this morning there was an Israeli brigade. There's a security fence, and beyond the security fence there is some Israeli territory still. So Israeli forces were beyond, a reconnaissance group was beyond the security fence, still they say in Israeli territory, when a mortar came their way. First it was a brigade from a Syrian group related to ISIS. They came and there was an exchange of gunfire with them. Following that, there was actually a mortar. It was fired at them on purpose and they responded. They called in an airstrike and all 4 of the militants in that car were killed. They were militants linked to ISIS, linked to the Yarmouk group, a Syrian group that is linked to ISIS, and that's a first.
Iris, can you tell us more about what makes this attack different than previous ones?
Yes, there have been previous attacks, but this is the first intentional exchange of gunfire with an ISIS-related militant group. It's interesting, from an Israeli point of view, in the hierarchy of threats, Israel puts Iran and its local affiliate Hezbollah above ISIS. They regard them as more dangerous. But this is the first time. There have been a number of mortar attacks. Israel has said they were always a spillover. This is the first intentional exchange of fire between Israel and a militant group, and that militant group is an ISIS-related militant group. And that's why this is a very tense day in the Golan Heights and at the Syrian border.
All right, thank you for that update, Iris. That's our special correspondent, Iris Mackler, reporting from Jerusalem.
Iran threatening to shoot down 2 U.S. Navy reconnaissance planes. It happened Saturday when a Navy EP-3 and a P-8 near the Strait of Hormuz received 3 radio calls from Iranian air defense units. In one of the calls, an Iranian military person said, "Coalition aircraft, I understand you are doing your mission in international waters, but you are approaching Iranian boundaries. If you do not change your heading, you will be aimed by Iranian missiles. Change your heading immediately." The U.S. pilots knew they were outside the range of Iranian surface-to-air missiles, so they proceeded without incident, according to U.S. military officials. But the Chief of Naval Operations is making clear his commanders have the authority to act against Iran if needed.
There's really nothing that limits the way that they can respond.
The U.S. says provocations by Iran in the air and at sea are growing. 32 incidents so far this year compared to 23 all of last year. Most are conducted by Iran's more militant Revolutionary Guard Corps naval forces.
I think some of this is kids with bravado. Some of this is just Iranians showing how tough they are against this really overwhelmingly massive U.S. naval capability.
Bridge-to-bridge calls were conducted, no response.
The concern always is it could spin out of control.
Appears to be unsafe, unprofessional.
Several Revolutionary Guard Corps small attack boats recently swarmed a Navy ship.
It is irresponsible. It could lead toward violence. The Americans have both shown restraint but also demonstrated that you have to be ready to defend yourself.
The commander of the Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy saying confrontations with the Americans are, quote, sheer lies. But the CNO says the U.S. should think about talking to Iran.
I think it's very important that we eliminate this sort of activity where we can. There's nothing good can come from it.
U.S. Navy officials say tonight they will continue to exercise restraint, but they will be ready to act against Iran if they must.
Thailand's fish are disappearing, threatening a multi-billion-dollar industry. Years of overfishing killing off stocks in the Gulf of Thailand, prompting fishermen to head out to protected waters and boost their catch illegally. Bangkok is cracking down on lawbreakers, but environmental groups say they're just part of a far wider problem.
What's often underreported and not even calculated into the solutions of returning the fish population is the impact of climate change upon the Gulf of Thailand. Now, warming oceans means that fish are disappearing because they're losing not only their habitat, but their food source, and they're being pushed into deeper water where they feel more comfortable.
The EU has warned Thailand to clean up its fishing industry or face a ban on seafood exports. Bangkok has responded by ordering boats to register and banning those that don't meet a certain standard. It's also sunk dozens of illegal vessels to spur new coral growth. At stake, about $7 billion a year.
Now, a significant part of this goes to the EU, around $500 to $600 million every year. If we lose that export quota to the EU, other countries might also jump on board and say, hey, you're not doing such a great job regulating your fishing industry, we're going to put you on probation like the EU has as well.
Critics say the government has done nothing to address climate change and that new regulations are largely futile because as long as fish are seeking colder waters, fishermen will follow them out, whether it's legal or not.
A very difficult time for both the mother and the family, as you can imagine.
Health officials confirmed the first Zika-related death in Texas.
The mother did not know that Zika virus was in play.
The mother is from El Salvador. She traveled to Harris County in her second trimester and gave birth a few weeks ago to a baby girl with microcephaly and other birth defects.
The child, unfortunately, died shortly after birth.
There is still no known local transmission of this virus. To date, 97 have been recorded in Texas, 28 within Harris County, but all of those were travel-related.
Oftentimes it's called the cockroach of mosquitoes because it's all around.
The carrier is the Aedes aegypti mosquito, a daytime feeder that is prevalent in Texas. And because of that, Judge Ed Emmett says if and when local transmission begins,
we will immediately set up an incident command center, just as we do for hurricanes or ice storms or anything else. This would be one of those types of emergencies.
Little more than 2 weeks after Italian scientists warned climate change had put much of the country at risk of flooding, parts of the northwest have been inundated by heavy rain. Torrential downpours caused the Piedmont region's Tanaro River to burst its banks, prompting local officials to ask the government to declare a state of emergency. 2 days of continual rain has had a similar impact on Turin, where the Po River also flooded. The region of Liguria has been hit hard and a red alert warning for bad weather issued. Meteorologists have warned of possible gale-force winds sweeping in over the coast. In Ventimiglia, near the border with France, 5 migrants were reportedly swept away after a swell hit the bridge they were living under. 4 were saved, but a Nigerian man is still missing, presumed drowned.
In Greece, 4 people have died and at least 1 other person is missing after heavy downpours caused flash flooding. In the northwest, a Romanian woman and her 2 children were rescued. At least 3 of the victims were elderly or vulnerable. This woman feared for her life. I was alone. The water came up to my chest. I was shaking. I'm disabled and I couldn't open the door. I couldn't even find the keys to open it and let the water out. I was sleeping in my bed and I was soaked. Soaked. I almost drowned. The flooding affected areas from the northeast of the country all the way to Sparta in the very south, destroying homes and businesses and washing cars out to sea.
And we start with some breaking news this hour. People in the Urals in Russia have seen burning objects raining down from the sky after a meteorite exploded above the Earth, causing a meteor shower. Eyewitnesses reported several blasts rocking the region and as long trails of smoke in the air. And RT's Lucy Kafanov has more now. So, Lucy, what's going on there?
Hi there, Yulia. Well, remember, imagine you're driving to work on a beautiful, calm Friday morning and suddenly a massive fireball appears out of nowhere in the sky. You're thinking to yourself, is this a plane crash? Is this a rocket attack, a UFO? Well, when it comes to the Urals region in Chelyabinsk, the city in Russia, it's actually a meteor shower. This is what took place this morning. Really stunning images that you're seeing there right now. Now, what we know from officials, according to officials and eyewitnesses, is that a series of explosions, possibly 5 to 6, took place when this meteor exploded in the air, raining down molten hot debris onto the ground. Now, this has caused widespread panic in at least 3 cities. Witnesses reported the walls of houses shaking, windows being blown out, cell phones even reportedly stopped working in some areas. Now, we're still getting the details. Details are still slowly coming in from officials, but what we know so far is that there are no casualties, no massive injuries. At least that's what we're hearing at at the moment, there has been some concern about potential small injuries at a school, unconfirmed. So some schools are reportedly being evacuated. We're also hearing that a zinc factory was hit by a piece of the meteor, but no leaks reported so far. Officials did do preliminary testing of radiation levels in the area. They say that that is okay, but of course tests are going to continue throughout the day. The biggest issue right now is the falling debris and the smoke, the black smoke that people are reporting that is hanging in the air. So very, very shocking developments, probably not the kind of surprise you want to see on your way to work on Friday morning. One interesting fact of note is that the world is closely watching another meteor that's supposed to graze past the Earth later on this evening. That's the size of an Olympic-sized swimming pool. This is an unrelated incident, and of course, as it develops, we will continue to bring you more information. Again, no casualties reported so far. Radiation levels are okay at the moment, but of course, we'll have to keep you up to date as the developments come in.